For 5 years, I paid for his medical degree. When he graduated, he paid me back with a divorce. Your simplicity embarrasses me. You are no longer worthy of me, he said. He thought he was discarding a simple lunch lady. He had no idea he was declaring war on the secret owner of the city's largest commercial real estate empire. Before I tell you how I evicted him from his own dream clinic, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to see exactly what happens when a man bites the hand that fed him. The crystal chandeliers of the Golden Oak Country Club blinded me as I pushed through the double doors. My arms screamed under the weight of the 5-tier vanilla bean cake I had spent the last 48 hours baking and decorating by hand. Sweat trickled down my back, soaking into my white chef coat, which was already stained with flour and sugar. I had not slept in 2 days. I had catered this entire event myself to save money for Marcus because he insisted his graduation party had to be at the most exclusive club in Atlanta. I scanned the room searching for my husband. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old money. Black doctors and lawyers in bespoke tuxedos held champagne flutes, laughing with their wives in shimmering evening gowns. I felt like a stain on a silk sheet. There he was. Marcus stood near the center of the room holding court. He looked magnificent in the velvet tuxedo jacket I had bought him with the profits from my last 3 catering gigs. He was laughing at something his brother Elijah was saying. Next to Elijah stood Tiffany, his wife. She was wearing a pale cream silk dress that probably cost more than my delivery van. I took a deep breath and moved toward them, forcing a smile. I just wanted him to see the cake. I wanted him to taste it and tell me it was worth the sleepless nights. Marcus turned and his smile vanished instantly. It was replaced by a look I knew well recently, a mixture of annoyance and deep visceral disgust. He did not come to help me. Instead, he rushed forward, his hand raised not to greet me, but to stop me. He shoved my arm hard. The heavy cake platform wobbled dangerously. My heart stopped as the top tier swayed, but I managed to steady it with a desperate lunge. "What is wrong with you, Marcus?" hissed his voice, a low, venomous whisper. "You almost crashed into Tiffany. Do you have any idea how much that silk cost?" I blinked, stinging sweat from my eyes. "I just wanted to bring the cake out for the toast, Marcus. I made it exactly how you asked with the gold leaf and—" He cut me off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Look at you, Nia. You look like you just crawled out of a grease trap. You smell like fryer oil and desperation. This is a gathering of professionals, of doctors, and you walk in here looking like the help." Tiffany stepped closer, pinching her nose slightly with a delicate manicured hand. "Oh, Marcus, do not be too hard on her. It is not her fault. Some people are just built for labor. She probably does not realize that kitchen smells cling to cheap fabric. Here, let me call a server to take that heavy thing away before she drops it on someone who actually matters." Her fake sweetness was worse than Marcus's anger. It was a pat on the head for a dog you were about to kick. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to defend me, waiting for him to tell his sister-in-law that I was his wife, that I had paid for his tuition, that I had paid for this party. Instead, he looked at me with cold, dead eyes. "Do as she says, Nia. Give the cake to a waiter and go hide in the kitchen until you can make yourself presentable. Or better yet, just stay in the back. You are ruining the aesthetic." He turned his back on me, returning to his conversation as if I were nothing more than a servant who had made a mistake. I stood there, the heavy cake trembling in my arms, my heart shattering quietly under the noise of the party. He was ashamed of me. After 5 years of double shifts and paying his bills, he was ashamed of the very work that had put that degree in his hand. I handed the cake to a passing waiter who looked at me with pity. I did not cry. Not yet. I just wiped the flour from my cheek and stepped back into the shadows, watching my husband shine on my dime. I tried to retreat into the shadows of the service corridor, desperate to hide my flushing face, but a hand gripped my arm like a steel trap. It was Beatrice, my mother-in-law. She was wearing a gold sequined gown and an elaborate hat that would have been more appropriate for the front pew at Sunday service than an evening gala. To the rest of Atlanta, she was a pillar of the community, a devout church mother who led choir practice and organized food drives. To me, she was the woman who had spent 5 years reminding me that I was merely the soil in which her son was planted, not the sun that helped him grow. She dragged me into a small alcove near the restrooms, away from the eyes of the guests, but with a clear line of sight to the ballroom floor. Her grip was painful, but her smile was fixed in place for anyone who might be watching. "Fix your face, Nia," she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. "You are walking around looking like a kicked dog, and it is embarrassing, my son. This is his night of triumph. Do not spoil it with your pity party." I tried to pull my arm away, but she held fast. "I am tired, Beatrice. I have been cooking for 2 days straight to pay for this venue because Marcus said he had to have the golden oak. I just wanted him to be happy." Beatrice let out a short, sharp laugh that sounded nothing like joy. "Happy? You think a man like Marcus finds happiness in a wife who smells like grease? Look out there, Nia, just look." She pointed a manicured finger toward the center of the room. Marcus was standing next to Dr. Chloe, a woman I knew. Marcus was standing next to Dr. Chloe, a woman I knew only from the stories Marcus told about his brilliant study partner. Chloe was radiant in a sleek emerald evening gown, her hair falling in perfect waves down her back. She held a crystal flute of champagne with an elegance I could never mimic. She was laughing at something the chief of surgery was saying, and she looked like she belonged there. She looked like she owned the room. "That is what a doctor needs," Beatrice whispered in my ear, her breath hot and smelling of peppermint. "A woman of substance, a woman of pedigree." Chloe comes from a family of surgeons. She brings dignity to the room. "You bring the smell of fried chicken and labor." The words cut deep, but I tried to stand my ground. "I paid for his tuition, Beatrice, every dime. I paid for his books, his lab fees, and the rent on the apartment where he studied. Chloe did not do that. I did." Beatrice released my arm with a shove of disgust. "Hush your mouth, girl. Do not dare speak of money as if it buys you class. That was your duty. The Lord blessed you with the opportunity to serve a man with a divine calling. It was your privilege to support him while he ascended. Do not act like he owes you. You were investing in glory you could never achieve on your own. You should be on your knees thanking Jesus that Marcus allowed you to attach your name to his for this long. He needed a mule to carry the load up the mountain, but now he has reached the summit. We do not bring the mule into the palace." She smoothed down the front of her sequined dress, her face returning to its mask of pious serenity. "Now go out the back door. We have distinguished guests to entertain and you look like the cleaning crew. Do not make me call security to remove you. It would break Marcus's heart to see you humiliated even more than you already are." She turned and walked back into the party, greeting the mayor with a warm hug as if she hadn't just gutted me in the hallway. I looked back at Marcus and Chloe. He was leaning in close to her, whispering something that made her giggle. He didn't look for me. He didn't check to see if I was okay. I was the mule, and my work was done. The room fell silent as the master of ceremonies tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man of the hour, Dr. Marcus Vance." The applause was deafening, rolling over me like a physical wave. I stood near the swinging kitchen doors, clutching a tray of empty champagne flutes, my knuckles white against the metal. This was the moment. This was the moment he would acknowledge the sacrifice. Marcus strode to the stage, looking like a king ascending his throne. The spotlight caught the diamond stud in his ear and the gleam of his teeth. He gripped the podium with confidence. "First, I must give honor to God." He began, his voice smooth, and practiced the same tone he used to charm the attendings at the hospital. "Without him, I am nothing. And to my mother Beatrice, Mama, please stand up." Beatrice stood from table 1, basking in the applause, waving her hand as if she were royalty. "You prayed me through this," Mama Marcus continued. "You kept me grounded. You are the rock of this family." I held my breath, waiting. I was the one who paid the tuition. I was the one who proofread his papers until 3 in the morning. I was the one who worked double shifts at the catering hall so he could focus on his residency. Surely now he would say my name. This journey was not easy, Marcus said, his expression turning serious. It required sleepless nights. It required financial sacrifice. It required a vision that went beyond the ordinary. And I did not walk this path alone. Here it comes, I thought. My heart hammered against my ribs. I want to invite someone special to the stage, he said, smiling. A woman who understands the unique pressures of a surgeon. A woman whose intellect challenges mine every single day. A woman who represents the very best of Black excellence. Dr. Chloe, please join me. The air left my lungs. It felt as though the floor had opened up beneath my feet. Dr. Chloe stood up from the table next to Beatrice. She glided toward the stage, the emerald silk of her gown flowing like water. She took Marcus' hand and he pulled her up beside him. They looked perfect together. Two doctors, two pedigrees. This, Marcus said, gesturing to her, is what the future looks like. It is rare to find a partner who reflects your own light back at you. Chloe, you are a woman of substance. You are a woman of class. You are the only person who truly understands what it takes to operate at this level. Thank you for being my equal. The room erupted in cheers. Cameras flashed, capturing the beautiful couple. Marcus leaned in and kissed her cheek, lingering just long enough to make a statement. He had not just forgotten me. He had erased me. He had taken my 5 years of labor, my money, my sweat, and my youth, and he had used them to build a pedestal for another woman. I stood there in the shadows, the smell of dish soap clinging to my skin, watching my husband hold the hand of the woman he was replacing me with. He called her a woman of class. The implication was clear. I was the help. I was the stepping stone he had walked on to get to her. No one looked at me. No one remembered I existed. I was completely and utterly alone in a room full of people drinking the wine I had paid for. The heavy oak door of the VIP lounge slammed shut, cutting off the music and laughter from the ballroom. The sudden silence was suffocating. I stood near the leather armchair, my hands still trembling from the weight of the cake and the humiliation on the stage. I looked at Marcus, hoping that perhaps this was all a performance. Maybe in private he would drop the arrogance. Maybe he would hug me and thank me for the $200,000 in tuition. Maybe he would acknowledge that I was the only reason he was standing there in a bespoke tuxedo instead of a fast food uniform. Marcus walked over to the mahogany desk and picked up a thick manila envelope. He did not look at me. He looked at his reflection in the mirror. Thick manila envelope. He did not look at me. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, adjusting his silk bow tie. I thought you might want this, he said casually, tossing the envelope onto the coffee table in front of me. It slid across the polished wood and stopped at my feet. I reached down and opened it. The words, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage," stared up at me in bold black type. My breath hitched. I looked up at him, confused. What is this, Marcus? Is this a joke? It is not a joke, Nia, he said, turning to face me finally. His eyes were cold, empty of anything resembling love. It is a correction, a necessary adjustment to my life trajectory. Look at yourself. Really look at yourself. You are simple. Your simplicity embarrasses me. I took a step back as if he had slapped me. Simple. I built a business to pay your bills, Marcus. I worked 18-hour days so you could study. And that is exactly the problem. He interrupted, his voice smooth and condescending. You are a worker. A grinder. You smell like labor. I am a surgeon now, Nia. I operate on the elite. I need a wife who can navigate a gala, not someone who worries about food costs and delivery schedules. You were useful when I was a student. You were the fuel. But the rocket has launched. We do not bring the fuel tank into orbit. We discard it. He poured himself a glass of expensive scotch, the very scotch I had bought for him, as a congratulatory gift. He took a sip and sighed. Besides, he added casually, as if discussing the weather, Chloe and I have been together for a year. Since my 3rd year of residency, actually. The room spun. A year. While I was catering weddings to pay for his board exams, he was sleeping with his colleague. While I was sleeping in the back of my delivery van to save on rent, he was building a life with another woman. She fits the brand, Nia, he explained, setting the glass down. Her father is the chief of staff. Her mother sits on the hospital board. When I walk into a room with Chloe, doors open. When I walk in with you, people ask if we are lost. You are no longer worthy of me. You are an anchor and I was born to fly. So sign the papers, take the apartment. It is a dump anyway, but it suits you. Just let me go be the man I was destined to be. He looked at me with genuine pity, as if my heartbreak was just another mess he was too important to clean up. He expected me to cry. He expected me to beg. But as I looked at the man I had sacrificed my youth for, I realized he was right about one thing. I was simply done being his victim. Marcus watched me with a smirk playing on his lips, waiting for the tears to fall. He expected the begging. He expected the scene where the desperate wife clings to the hem of his expensive jacket, pleading for a scrap of his affection. He had rehearsed this moment in his head 1,000 times, painting himself as the tragic hero escaping a burden. He was so certain of my desperation that he actually pushed the pen toward me as if he were doing me a favor. I looked at the papers. The legal jargon was sharp and final. It was a dissolution of a partnership that I had funded entirely. I looked at Marcus standing there in the suit I bought, drinking the scotch I paid for, celebrating a degree I earned for him. The grief I expected to feel was absent. Instead, I felt a sudden cold clarity. It was the feeling of a fever breaking. I took the pen from his hand. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second. He had prepared arguments to counter my pleading, but he had no defense against my silence. I bent over the table and signed my name. Nia Vance. The letters were dark and steady. I did not shake. I did not hesitate. I signed away 5 years of sacrifice, as if I were signing a receipt for a delivery. I straightened up and set the pen down. Marcus blinked, looking at the signature, and then back at me, confusion clouding his arrogant features. "You are not going to fight for us?" He asked the question, slipping out before he could stop it. His ego was bruised that I was letting him go so easily. "There is no us, Marcus," I said, my voice flat. "There is just you and the ladder you climbed. I am done being the rungs." I looked down at my left hand. The gold band on my ring finger was thin and scratched. It cost $50 at a pawn shop 5 years ago because Marcus needed the rest of our savings for textbooks. He wore a diamond stud in his ear now, and a Rolex on his wrist, but I was still wearing the poverty we started in. It was a shackle, not a symbol of love. I slid the ring off my finger. It felt light, meaningless. I held it up, catching the light from the crystal chandelier. Marcus watched me, his eyes narrowing. I held the ring over his glass of vintage Cabernet Sauvignon, the wine I had selected, the wine I had paid for. I opened my fingers. The ring hit the liquid with a solid plink. Red wine splashed up and outward, hitting the pristine white bib of his tuxedo shirt. The stain bloomed instantly like a gunshot wound on the white fabric. Marcus jumped back, gasping. "You ruined my shirt. This is custom silk." I looked him dead in the eye. "You are right, Marcus. I am not worthy of you, because I am too expensive for the price you are willing to pay. You want a trophy wife to stand on a shelf. I am an empire. You just do not know it yet. But you will." I turned on my heel. My non-slip kitchen shoes squeaked slightly on the polished marble floor, but I did not care. I walked out of the VIP lounge past the ballroom where Dr. Chloe was waiting for her stolen prize. I walked out of the Golden Oak Country Club and into the humid Atlanta night. I left him with his stained shirt, his stolen glory, and a cheap ring drowning in expensive wine. I had no husband. I had no home to return to. But for the first time in 5 years, I was free. And he had no idea that the check for his tuition was the last thing I would ever pay for him. The conference room at the law firm of Sterling and Associates smelled of lemon polish and intimidation. I sat on one side of the glass table, my hands folded in my lap. Across from me sat Marcus and his lawyer, a man named Julian, who wore a suit that cost more than my entire catering inventory. Marcus refused to look me in the eye. He was too busy checking his reflection in the window, adjusting the cuffs of his shirt, as if he were preparing for a photo shoot rather than a divorce settlement. Julian slid a thick stack of papers across the glass. The sound was like a blade sharpening against stone. "We have prepared a preliminary schedule of assets and liabilities," Julian said, his voice smooth and oily. "As you know, Georgia is an equitable distribution state. That means all assets and debts acquired during the marriage are subject to division." I pulled the papers toward me. My eyes scanned the columns. There were no assets listed under the name of Marcus, no savings, no investments, just a long list of liabilities. Credit card debt totaling $40,000, a car lease for a luxury sedan I did not even know he had, personal loans taken out in the last 6 months. "You want to split the debt?" I asked, looking up. "You want me to pay half of the credit cards you used to buy designer clothes and dinners with Chloe?" "It is marital debt," Nia, Marcus said, finally turning to face me. His tone was bored. "We were married when the debt was incurred. Therefore, it is our debt. You benefited from my lifestyle." "I benefited?" I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "I was working in a kitchen while you were living like a king. I did not see a dime of this money." "That is irrelevant," Julian cut in. "The law is the law. You will assume 50% of the outstanding liabilities. In exchange, Marcus is willing to waive any claim to future spousal support given your current income disparity." I stared at them. He was a surgeon. I ran a catering business. The income disparity was in his favor, or at least it should be. But on paper he was drowning in debt, and I was the solvent one because I paid my bills. "There is one more thing," Marcus said, leaning forward. A smile played on his lips, the kind of smile a wolf gives a lamb before the bite. "The van. My delivery van. The Ford Transit I had scraped and saved for the one with the commercial oven installed in the back. It was the heart of my business. It was how I delivered 300 meals a day." "What about it?" I asked, my voice tightening. "It is a marital asset," Marcus said. "Bought 2 years ago. Joint funds. I want it." "You cannot be serious. You have a luxury sedan. You cannot cook. What do you want with a food truck?" "It is not for me," Marcus said, examining his fingernails. "It is for Tiffany. She is starting a mobile dog grooming business. That van would be perfect for transporting her equipment and the larger breeds. She needs the space." The air left the room. He wanted to take the vehicle I used to feed thousands of people, the vehicle that had paid for his medical school applications, and give it to his sister-in-law to haul wet dogs. It was not just greed. It was a calculated attempt to humiliate me, to strip me of the one thing that gave me independence. "That van is my livelihood, Marcus. It is how I make the money that you are trying to steal." "It is an asset," Julian interrupted, "and Marcus is entitled to his share. If you want to keep it, you will have to buy him out. Cash value plus interest. Or you can hand over the keys today and we will deduct it from your share of the debt." I looked at Marcus. He was enjoying this. He wanted to see me broken. He wanted to see me beg for the tools of my trade. He empire into a dog kennel. The sheer pettiness of it was breathtaking. He did not need the van. He just needed me not to have it. The heavy mahogany door of the conference room swung open and my attorney, David Caldwell, stepped inside. He carried a binder as thick as a phone book. The sound of it hitting the glass table echoed like a gavel strike. Marcus jumped slightly but quickly recovered his mask of indifference. David did not sit down. He stood at the head of the table, commanding the room with the presence of a man who knew exactly where the bodies were buried. "Gentlemen," David said, his voice baritone and steady, "before we discuss stripping my client of her business assets to transport pets, let us address the matter of the outstanding capital contribution." Marcus frowned, looking from David to me. "What capital contribution? We have no assets." David flipped the binder open. It was a paper trail of my blood and sweat, page after page of bank transfers, canceled checks made out to the Medical College of Georgia, receipts for textbooks that cost more than my monthly rent. Invoices for the prep courses Marcus insisted he needed. Rent checks for the high-rise apartment he demanded because the dorms were too loud. $212,000.45, David announced, pointing to the bold figure at the bottom of the spreadsheet. This is the direct financial investment Mrs. Vance made into your education and career, Dr. Vance. If you wish to divide the marital estate equitably, we must first address the reimbursement of these funds. You walked away with a medical degree. She is walking away with debt. That is not equitable. I watched Marcus. I wanted to see him squirm. I wanted to see the realization that he could not just use people and discard them without a bill coming due. For a moment he looked at the spreadsheet and his eyes widened. But then the arrogance returned. It washed over his face like a tide. He picked up a copy of a tuition check. He held it up to the light, examining it as if it were a counterfeit bill. "This is cute," Marcus said, a smirk curling the corner of his mouth. He dropped the paper back onto the table. "Really, Nia, you kept the receipts. That is so incredibly petty." "It is proof of payment," David stated. Marcus laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound that made my skin crawl. He looked at his lawyer, Julian, and then back at me. "Let me explain something to you about the law, since you are just a cook and clearly do not understand how this works. In the state of Georgia, unless there is a signed written promissory note executed at the time the money was exchanged, funds transferred between spouses are considered a gift." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine. "Did I sign a loan agreement, Nia? Did I sign a contract promising to pay you back with interest? Or did you give this money freely because you were desperate to keep a man who was clearly out of your league?" I felt the blood drain from my face. He was using my love against me. He was twisting my sacrifice into an act of pathetic desperation. "It was an investment in our future," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "Bad investment," Marcus countered, shrugging his shoulders. "Ventures fail every day. You bet on a horse that was too fast for you to ride." "That money is gone, Nia. It was a gift. A gift given to ensure I would stay with you while I became a doctor. And now that I am one, you want a refund because you cannot handle the upgrade." He stood up, smoothing his jacket. "Go ahead and sue me. Spend another $50,000 on legal fees trying to claw back a gift. The court will laugh you out of the room. You have no paper trail for a loan. You just have the sad history of a woman who tried to buy a future she could not afford. Now sign the papers, or I take the van and everything inside it." The commercial kitchen smelled of rosemary and roasting garlic, a sanctuary I had built with my own hands. I was prepping 300 portions of braised short ribs for a corporate luncheon, my knife moving in a steady rhythm against the cutting board. It was the only time my mind was quiet. Then the back door slammed open. The sudden noise made me jump, my knife slipping and nicking my finger. I looked up to see Beatrice standing there, framed by the harsh sunlight. She looked out of place in my kitchen, her Sunday hat casting a shadow over her face, her expensive handbag clutched like a weapon. She did not knock. She did not ask permission. She just walked in as if she owned the place, as if she owned me. "Well, look at you," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Still playing in the grease. I thought you might have learned some shame by now, but I see you are shameless." I put the knife down, wrapping a towel around my bleeding finger. "Get out, Beatrice. You are not welcome here. This is a place of business, not your living room." She laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the stainless steel counters. "Business. Is that what you call this? Feeding people like cattle? Listen to me, girl. I came here to give you a warning. Marcus tells me you are trying to extort him, trying to claim his hard-earned money because you cannot accept that he has moved on to better things." "I am trying to get back what I paid for him," I said, stepping out from behind the prep table. "I paid for his degree. Beatrice, I paid for your bills too when you claimed you were short on tithes. Do not pretend you do not know where that money came from." Beatrice's face twisted in fury. She took a step toward me, pointing a finger in my face. "You listen to me, you ungrateful little wretch. My son is a doctor. He is a man of God, and you are trying to drag his name through the mud because you are bitter. If you do not drop this lawsuit, if you do not sign those papers and leave him alone, I will destroy you. I will stand in the pulpit this Sunday, and I will tell everyone what you really are. I will tell them you were a loose woman who trapped him. I will tell them you abandoned your duties as a wife. I will make sure no decent person in this city ever orders a sandwich from you again. She was close enough now that I could smell her perfume, heavy and cloying. She thought she could bully me. She thought I was still the girl who was desperate for her approval. You will not tell anyone anything, I said, my voice low and steady. Because if you do, I will show the church the receipts for the gambling debts I paid off for you last year. Remember those, Beatrice? The ones you said were for the building fund. Her eyes went wide with shock, but she recovered quickly, lunging forward to grab my arm. You little liar! I will teach you some respect. She raised her hand to slap me. I did not flinch. I did not cower. I reached for the industrial spray nozzle hanging above the sink. I squeezed the handle. A jet of high-pressure water hit her square in the chest, soaking her silk blouse instantly. She shrieked, stumbling back, her hat knocked askew. I said, "Get out!" She sputtered, wiping water from her face, her makeup running in dark streaks. You are insane. You soaked me. I took a step toward her, raising the nozzle again. The next one is for the face, Beatrice. Get out of my kitchen before I wash the sin right off you. She scrambled backward, slipping on the wet floor, her dignity completely gone. She cursed me as she ran out the door, her wet clothes clinging to her frame. I watched her go, feeling a surge of power I had never known before. I locked the door behind her and turned back to my short ribs. My finger was still bleeding, but I did not care. I had defended my territory. And for the first time I realized that I was not just fighting for money. I was fighting for my soul. The adrenaline was still pumping through my veins as I mopped up the water Beatrice had left behind. I thought the worst was over. I thought I had won the battle for my dignity. I was wrong. The back door did not slam this time. It opened slowly with a menacing creak. A man stepped into the kitchen. He was not a customer. He was built like a linebacker, wearing a cheap suit that strained at the shoulders. He looked around the kitchen, assessing the value of my ovens, my mixers, my life. "Are you Nia Vance?" he asked, his voice like gravel. I nodded, gripping the mop handle like a staff. "I am." "Who are you?" He pulled a folded paper from his inside pocket. "I am here for the payment, Mrs. Vance. You are 90 days past due on the collateral loan. If you cannot pay today, I am authorized to seize assets." I laughed, a nervous sound. "You have the wrong person. I have zero debt. I pay cash for everything. My credit score is perfect." He stepped closer, invading my personal space. He held out the paper. It was a loan agreement from a place called Quick Cash and Title, a predatory lender known for interest rates that should be illegal. I looked at the bottom of the page. My breath caught in my throat. There was my signature. Nia Vance. It was shaky, a poor imitation, but it was there. And next to it, co-signers. "I never signed this," I whispered. "This is fraud." The man shrugged. "Man. Not my problem, lady. The paper says you are liable. $50,000 principal plus interest and penalties. You owe us $62,000 as of this morning. $60,000. For what?" I scanned the itemized list on the document. My knees buckled. 1 custom engagement ring, 4-carat solitaire, platinum band. The room spun. Marcus had not just cheated on me. He had stolen my identity. He had forged my signature to borrow money from loan sharks to buy an engagement ring for his mistress. He bought Chloe a ring worth more than my entire business using my credit because his own was ruined. "I do not have the ring," I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and terror. "Marcus has it. Go find him." The man shook his head. "We tried. The doctor is hard to reach. But you are right here. And this equipment looks valuable. You have 24 hours, Mrs. Vance. Pay the $62,000. or I come back with a truck and I take everything. Your ovens, your fridge, your van. I do not care who wears the ring. I care who signed the paper. And you signed the paper. He turned and walked out, leaving the document on the stainless steel table. I stared at the forgery. It was not just a loan. It was a noose. Marcus had set a trap that could destroy everything I had built. If I fought this, I would have to prove fraud. If I proved fraud, I would have to expose my finances. And if I exposed my finances, they would see the millions I had hidden away in my LLCs. He had backed me into a corner. The glass walls of the conference room on the 45th floor offered a panoramic view of Atlanta. It was a different world from the grease-stained kitchen where I had just been threatened by a loan shark. James, my corporate attorney, sat across from me, his face grim. He was the only person who knew the truth about Vance Holdings. He knew that the woman who drove a beat-up catering van was actually the owner of a commercial real estate portfolio worth $50 million. "We have a problem, Nia," James said, tapping his pen against the leather notebook. "A $50 million problem." I paced the length of the room, my heels sinking into the plush carpet. "The problem is that my ex-husband forged my signature to buy a diamond for his mistress. That is a felony, James. We send him to jail." James shook his head slowly. "If we file criminal charges for fraud, the district attorney will launch an investigation. If we fight this debt in civil court, the judge will order full financial discovery to determine your ability to pay. They will subpoena everything, your personal accounts, your business accounts, and they will find the LLCs. They will find the shell companies. They will find the empire you have been building while Marcus was busy playing doctor." I stopped pacing. The realization hit me like a physical blow. If they found the assets before the divorce was finalized, Marcus would be entitled to half. $25 million. He would become a multi-millionaire just for divorcing me. "So what are you saying, James?" "I have to pay for the ring. I have to pay for the diamond that is currently sitting on the finger of the woman who wrecked my marriage." "You have to make a choice," James said, his voice calm and pragmatic. "You can fight for the $200,000 in tuition. You can fight the $60,000 loan shark debt. You can win the moral victory and put Marcus in prison. But the cost of that victory will be half of your empire. Or you can lose. You can pay the debt. You can drop the claim for the tuition reimbursement. You can let him think he broke you. You walk away with your secret intact, and you keep the $50 million. I looked out the window at the city below. I could see the construction crane over the Onyx Tower, the building I was secretly in negotiations to acquire. I thought about Marcus. I thought about his arrogance. I thought about his greed. If he knew I had money, he would never let go. He would drag this out for years. I hated it. Every fiber of my being screamed for justice. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burn his world down right now. But I was a businesswoman first, and this was a transaction. Pay the loan shark. I said, my voice cold. Pay off the ring, and tell his divorce lawyer that I am dropping the claim for the tuition money. Tell them I am broke. Tell them I am defeated. Tell them I will sign the divorce papers exactly as they are. James nodded, respecting the strategic sacrifice. It is the right move, Nia. You are losing a pawn to save the queen. I turned back to the window. Let him have his little victory. Let him think he won. Let him think I am nothing but a discarded lunch lady, because when I come back for him, I will not be coming for his money. I will be coming for his life. And he will never see it coming because he is too busy looking down on me to see the knife I am holding behind my back. The courtroom was sterile and silent, save for the scratching of pens on paper. Marcus sat next to Julian, looking smug and relaxed, as if he were already celebrating a victory lap. He had his arm draped casually over the back of his chair, his eyes scanning the room with an air of ownership. I sat opposite him, David beside me, the divorce settlement lying between us like a treaty ending a war. Neither side had truly won. Or so Marcus thought. Judge Thornton, a stern woman with glasses perched on her nose, looked over the documents. Mrs. Vance, you are agreeing to waive any claim to reimbursement for educational expenses, correct? Yes, Your Honor, I said, my voice steady. I felt David tense beside me, but I kept my eyes fixed on the judge. And you are agreeing to assume 50% of the marital debt, including the outstanding balance on the personal loan? Yes, Your Honor. Marcus leaned forward, a smirk playing on his lips. He thought I was defeated. He thought I was weak. He had no idea that I was simply clearing the board for a new game. Very well, the judge said, signing the final decree. Divorce granted. Court is adjourned. As we stood up to leave, Marcus approached me. He leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear. You always were a quitter, Nia, he whispered, his voice dripping with contempt. You never had what it takes to play in the big leagues. Enjoy your little food truck. I hope you think of me every time you scrub a grease trap. He pulled back, a cruel smile on his face. He expected me to crumble. He expected me to cry. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who knows the trap has already been sprung. Enjoy your victory, Marcus, I said, my voice calm and cold. Savor it, because it's the last one you'll ever have. You think you broke me. You just freed me. And now I have nothing left to lose. But you have everything to lose. His smile faltered for a second, a flicker of doubt crossing his eyes. But then he shook his head, laughing as he turned away. Pathetic, he muttered, walking out of the courtroom with Julian trailing behind him like a loyal dog. I watched him go, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over me. He thought he had won. He thought he had stripped me of everything. But he was wrong. He had taken the deadweight. He had taken the debt. He had taken the illusion of a happy marriage. But he hadn't taken my mind. He hadn't taken my ambition. And he certainly hadn't taken the $50 million sitting in my secret accounts. I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright Atlanta sun. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with air that tasted sweeter than it had in years. The first phase was over. The shackles were off. Now the real work could begin. I pulled out my phone and dialed James. It's done, I said. Initiate phase 2. Buy the Onyx Tower. The notification light on my burner phone blinked incessantly. I kept that old number active for one reason only: intel. It had been exactly